first of all, one of the best things, one of the strongest things in my church is community, and not community that you get going for a group run. Like, that's community too, but there's something so much deeper when you have a shared faith, and how these people, and I could tell a really quick story. When in 2012, which was probably the bottom, like that's when our house was in foreclosure. We were out, the business was just doing terrible, marriage was, and I joined something in my church called Christ Renews His Parish. And it actually comes from a Protestant church. I forget what it was called before they transferred over. But it's a weekend that you spend with 36 men, and the women do it too, 36 women. So it's just men, just women. You're in there for 2 days straight. You never leave. No phones, right? And it's intense. There's witness talks. There's, for us, there's confession. There's mass, all that. And then you stay together for a year every Monday night after that. And talk about bonding with a group of men. Yeah. Well, about halfway through it, I was struggling so badly, I dropped out of it. I was like, I'm done. I can't go anymore. I can't tell this story anymore. It's too depressing, All 36 guys showed up at my house unannounced and prayed over me. And they just showed up. I'm like, what the heck? My wife knew they were coming. Yeah. And they prayed over me, and they said, we're here for you. And then they just left. And that's in my book. Like, it brings me to tears that they just had a meeting, and they're like, hey, Rami's struggling. He just quit. We need to go over there. They didn't come over and like yell at me or, you need to do this. They just showed that support. And guess what? I rejoined, finished it, and it was monumental. And I ended up becoming a witness for the next group. So I ended up telling my story and helping other men, which was super powerful.
I was planning on doing a master's in finance, but I felt God was leading me towards theology. So I did a master's in theology and finished that about 6 years ago. And it was because of the conversation I had with an atheist, forcing me to be open about my own knowledge of my own faith, realizing that I was not a good Christian. And so I needed to learn more, and God forced me to go into a seminary. And in seminary, I took a lot of apologetics. I took a lot of deep theological discussions or courses like systematic theology, church and history, historical backgrounds. I mean, you name it. Very in depth. And since then, I've been, I think, more equipped to have these discussions with my kids. And so we have, every week we'll have some sort of theological discussion that we discuss as a family. And it's okay if they disagree with me. It's okay if I disagree with them. As long as the principle of our discussion is based on love for God and salvation. If you and I have a difference of opinion on a salvation-based topic, we've got an issue, and we're going to discuss it even more. But one of the biggest discussions that we've had as a family recently is about predestination. Now, if you believe in predestination and I do not, guess what? It's okay. Yeah. We don't have to be upset about it. We don't. That is not a salvation-based issue, and we have those kind of discussions often. And throughout their lives, they've been involved in all the youth groups. They've been involved in lots of different homeschool co-ops where they're all Christian-based. It's hard for me to say that they haven't been forced into Christianity, because they have. Yeah. Let's be honest. We raised them that way because we believe that Christianity is the right religion. Otherwise, we would have been some other religion. Yep. But we've also let them to make up their own theological minds. So I did not force any of them. In fact, I held my kids off on getting baptized until I felt like they really understood and believed why they were getting baptized. And then I baptized them in the church. So they have their own theological perspectives, and they can hold their own in debate, and they can debate and apologize for on their topics all day long. And it's pretty impressive to actually watch.
I talk to a lot of people, a lot of dads, new dads, that say, I can never go through what you went through. And I like to challenge that, because God has made us very resilient. God has made us to want to have faith. And so our daughter was born on Christmas Day, and a couple weeks early, but not too not too much, and no expected complications. She was our second child, so we of course did all the screenings and all the tests, and thought everything was going to be work out perfectly. So it was born Christmas Day. We showed up at the hospital. We were stationed on Hawaii at the time, on Oahu, and immediately after she was born, and I was able to cut the umbilical cord, the nurses rushed her out of the room. Lack of pulse and very shallow. If she was breathing at all, it was very shallow. And they put her in an incubator and started working on her. Well, there's only one NICU, neonatal intensive care unit on Oahu, and that's in Honolulu. So they had to rush her from the east side of the island where we were in Kailua over to Kapiolani Hospital. And there she was for 86 days. And they ran a full battery of tests. Every day was something new. Every day was something different. A new strategy, a new thing, a new discovery. Some days were high, some days were low. And it was interesting because we at no time knew really what was going on. Found out probably month 2 that there were only 2 cases in the world that were documented similar to hers. And in those 2 cases, both child died within 4 months. So that gave us, something to work off of. And ironically, when we were told that, our faith only increased. Unfortunately, her lungs, heart, and kidney all started failing at different points in her stay at the hospital. And on the 86th day, we had to say goodbye. And it was really interesting because the whole time she was at the hospital, my wife and I's faith continued to grow. It continued to, we just got bold. I mean, I told doctors that I was going to walk out of the hospital with my daughter. I told the Marines that I was working with, I was the maintenance officer at the helicopter squadron at the time. I told 150 of them that I was going to walk my daughter back into the squadron one day, and they were going to get to meet her. So just bold words, bold actions. And when she passed away, it had some pretty devastating effects. My wife obviously took it the hardest, and she really had to dig deep and figure out what she truly believed. And we have been believers. We've both been raised in the church our whole lives. And it was really hard, and she had a really hard time going back to faith and going back into church and being in those circles. But I just told her, 2 things. One, I said, we lost our daughter. I'm not going to lose you. Mm-hmm. And the second thing was, that if we have to go back to the basics and we have to start all over, let's just focus on one thing. I love you. God loves us, and we're together. So let's start with, just working on that. And, it's been 8 years now, and I will say that she has made a drastic return back to her former self. And she's still on fire and still believes in healing and faith. And, it didn't happen to us, but that's okay. And that gives us a story to tell, to do this, right? To sit in front of each other and talk about how the struggle is real and how faith doesn't always pan out into the perfect scenario, but we still believe and we still keep going on. And so, so we took a pause and just kind of tried to reconstruct our family and our faith and who we were. And then we were blessed with a third child, Hudson, who came a year and a half after Brooklyn. So now, like I said, we're a family of 4, and we're incredibly happy and incredibly excited to see our daughter in heaven one